Welcome to the Labour Force. I'm Bongeni Muchwa. The marathon strike in the steel and engineering sector is finally over. The Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa has announced that it has reached a landmark wage agreement with NUMSA after 3 weeks of the crippling strike action. The employer body, SABC, represents the majority of steel and engineering companies in the country. It says the strike has cost its members over R500 million. Striking workers, meanwhile, have lost in excess of R200 million in salaries due to the no work, no pay rule. The impact of the strike has also been felt in sectors which use steel as a key input.
There is no doubt that this industry has suffered greatly over the last 12 days. So this is a sorry situation where there are no winners and losers. We are all losers, and we owe ourselves and this industry and our country a massive rejuvenation effort to try and claw back what we've lost. Unfortunately, we've also inflicted harm on sectors around us, like the motor, auto, mining and construction industry, because the engineering industry is a strategic industry that is a customer and supplier to all the key sectors of the economy. So when the engineering industry stutters and comes to a standstill, everyone in South Africa, Pty Limited, feels the effect of that.
Both SABC and NUMSA are scheduled to announce details of the agreement later this afternoon. Mbongeni Muchwa, SABC News, Johannesburg. For more, we are joined on the line by NUMSA spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi Majola. Phakamile, it's always a pleasure to welcome you on the show. We welcome you once again. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Well, needless to say, it's been a grueling 3 weeks of strike action, violent reports of violence outside factories across the country, workers being shot at with rubber bullets by the police and private security, massive losses, financial losses, as we've just reported, of course. SABC, the employer body, are mightily relieved this morning. Are you also relieved?
I don't think we can say that. And as I said to you before this interview, Mbongeni, that we at this point are not confirming and we're not denying whether an agreement has been reached. We are holding a press conference at 4 p.m. where we're going to unpack our attitude to the offer which SABC has placed on the table. But yes, indeed, it has been a lengthy strike. It is unfortunate that we had to resort to strike action. We did not, certainly would have preferred not to go on strike. But unfortunately, up until the point when we announced strike action, employers refused to budge beyond 4%. So the fact that we are currently engaging on a proposal of 6% on minimum from SABC is as a result of the 3-week strike action.
Now, SABC came out with a statement this morning announcing that it has reached the landmark agreement with unions, and then they called a briefing at 2 to announce the details, and then about an hour ago they issued a statement saying they are postponing that briefing to another date. So from what you are saying, I have to ask a simple question. Is there an agreement between you and SABC at this point or not?
You'll find out at 4 p.m. when SABC logs on to our press conference, and as NUMSA we unpack to the nation what our attitude is to the offer which SABC has placed on the table of 6% on minimum.
I would assume that if indeed you settle on the 6%, given everything that has happened, 3 weeks of strike and everything I've mentioned, you will be proud of what you've achieved for members. To achieve 6% increase in the current environment, the economic environment where the economy is weak, there's retrenchments everywhere, wages are frozen in many places. If you finally settle at 6% with NUMSA, will you regard that as quite an achievement on behalf of your members?
Well, I think the fact that there is a meaningful increase is something that we obviously would have to acknowledge to say as a positive development. the fact that SISA put a proposal of 6% last week is definitely, in our view, a positive development. It is very tragic, though, that it came at great cost. I mean, you're talking about 3 weeks of no work, no pay. So workers and their families have really suffered during this period. They really were the ones who made the ultimate sacrifice for this to happen. We sincerely wish we had not had to resort to strike action for us to be at this point. But be that as it may, at the end of the day, strike action is always a strike or wage negotiations. Let me put it that way. Wage negotiations are about give and take and compromise. And I think it's very clear that, when you look at where we started at 15%. By the time we announced the strike, we were at 8%. By this week, we were contemplating 6%. In fact, the special NEC, which was held yesterday, was dealing specifically with the 6% offer that SISA has placed on the table. It does show to you that at the end of the day, we are always willing to compromise, but we are not willing to settle for a settlement that would leave workers worse off. And that is always our goal with every single, whether it's strike action or negotiation. Our goal as a trade union is to always ensure that workers end up better off.
Now, I know from experience of covering strikes over many years that there is a big danger with a protracted strike that the workers, the members of the union, end up being divided on whether to carry on with the strike or to accept what's on the table. In fact, others end up being disgruntled with the union and may even choose to leave the union and join others. You will have your work cut out, with no doubt, when the dust has settled, to try and iron out those kind of eruptions, so to speak, which may have arisen during the strike. Is that something that you are preparing yourselves for at this point?
NUMSA is a worker-led trade union. So when we come to a decision about whether we proceed with the strike or whether we decide that we're no longer proceeding with the strike, those decisions are always taken democratically. Last night, we held a special NEC to debate precisely that question. All regions were represented. All the leadership who needed to be there were there in order to ensure that the decision that we finally came to was a decision that the majority of workers in the union support. Of course, there are some who may or may not agree with the decision, but as a worker-controlled union that believes in the decision of the majority, at the end of the day, we always implement the desires of the majority. So,
well, Phakamile, I'm afraid you're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time. But thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you always making the time to enlighten us about the goings-on in your struggles on behalf of the workers. That's why we leave it.